Jack Neel, famous for his incredible podcasts, but what really makes them stand out? It's not just the content, it's the intros. The openers are absolutely mesmerizing. You literally can't blink for a single second when watching them. Every movement, every detail, every effect, perfect, timed and layered. They grab your attention, guide your eyes, and make the entire video feel alive. This is documentary style cinematic motion. It's fast, dynamic, layered. The kind of animation that immediately elevates any project. And today we are going to break down exactly how to create this breathtaking style.
Today's guest is an expert in psyops, mind control, and government brainwashing.
One of the most powerful techniques that people don't really understand. If you want someone to think an idea is their own, you have to make them feel clever for coming up with that idea.
The video is split into two parts. First, we will learn how to create stunning documentary style animation, and then we'll move on to a powerful text animation that takes everything to the next level. I will show you where to find the right presets, how to use special effects, and how to build openers that feel modern, sharp, and full of presence. Something you can use on your own videos. Explain clearly so both beginner and advanced editors can follow along. By the end of this video, you will understand not just how it looks, but how to make your own intros feel cinematic, precise, and unforgettable. Trust me, you will want to stay until the end, because this video includes things nobody else teaches. This is the complete guide to create a documentary style cinematic motion. Let's dive into the first part. So what exactly is documentary style cinematic motion animation and what is actually made of? In order to understand this, we first need to know what it actually look like. So let's take a deep look at Jack Neel intros and break down the key element behind this style. After collecting a bunch of animation in this editing style, what common thing can we see? First up, let's kick things off with the one detail everyone noticed instantly, is that the animation is designed to introduce the person Jack Neel interviewing and to give a quick glimpse into their background and life story. This is the foundation for understanding the style, and interestingly, the most eye-catching way to bring it to life is with a quick animation, lots of movement, and a clean, sharp transitions, which means the animation is designed to expand the topic in the most engaging way possible. And honestly, nothing grabs attention more than a bunch of cool effects and overlays. In this part, I'm going to show you how to create all those transitions and overlays on your own without downloading anything from a paid website, except for OnlyFans. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump into After Effects and start talking about how can we create those animations. First, create a new composition with a width of 90/20 and a height of 80/50. What look like a wide with a cinematic frame, like screen with the black bars at the top and the bottom. Drag into the comp the video uses as a template, and the background I created specifically to look as close as possible to Jack Neel background in the first animation. We will start by creating a light core, which will teach you a lot about effects we will use in this video. Using the ellipse tool, create a white circle in this area of the screen, duplicate it 3 times, and on the top circle add a Gaussian blur effect, set the blurriness to 80, and disable the repeat edges pixels. Add the turbo and displace effect, set amount to 100, size to 10 and complexity to 10, which create a soft turbulent edges. Select the 2 bottom circles, change their color to orange, center their anchor point, and slightly scale them up to 150%, so they are stand out behind. From the top circle, copy the Gaussian blur and the turbulent displace effect, and paste them onto the 2 circles below. On the bottom circle, add a CC radial fast blur effect, center the radial point in the middle of the circle, and set amount to 0%. On the side, you can see the frame I'm currently on. Pay attention to this because I'm going to explain most of animation frame by frame. At frame 0, create a mount keyframe, move 5 frames forward, and increase the amount to 85. Position it when it looks perfect. Now go to Google and search for Chase Hughes, open images. There are many photos of him. I think this one looks the best, so we will use it. Back in After Effects, drag the image of Chase Hughes with the background removed into the comp. Don't worry, I will include it in the project files. Scale the image to 750%, move it to the center of the screen, and position it at this point. Add a tint effect, and change the map white 2 to black. Add the fast box blur effect, and set the blur radius to 1. We will want to add something to enhance the atmosphere of the background. Now go to YouTube and search for Best Cloud Green Screen Video Background. As you can see, there are many options, but the first one looks the most suitable and it's free, so we'll use it. Of course, I will include it in the project files as well. Return to After Effects and add a cloud video to the comp. To remove the green screen, add a line color key effect and sample the green color using the key color. Add gradient ramp effect to the clouds, set the start color to brown and end color to dark shade of brown. Finally, reduce the opacity to 30%. Don't forget to like, subscribe so you never miss the next animation and tips. We will start creating text animation in this section. We will use a few different fonts through the video. All of them will be listed in the video description and are free. The font we will use now is Anton. In the center of the screen, write Today Guest uses the Anton font. Center the anchor point, scale the text to 320%, and move it to the center of the screen. create scale keyframe at the beginning, move 11 frames forward and reduce the scale to 250%. Select the keyframes, open Graph Editor and apply Easy In. At that point, cut the layer and delete everything after it. In the center of the screen, write Ease In, center the anchor point, scale it to roughly this size, create a scale keyframe at the end of the previous text layer, then cut and delete the part before it. Move slightly forward to frame 20 and scale the text down. Select the scale keyframes, go into the graph and apply Easy In. Cut and delete the part of the layer after the keyframe. Again, in the center of the screen, write Expert, center the anchor point, scale the text to 250%, cut the part of the layer that comes before, create scale and position keyframes, move slightly forward to second one, frame 10, scale the text down a bit, and move it down left to this area. Select the keyframes, open the graph, and apply Easy Ease. We will want to add a few effects to the text to make it look better. Duplicate the first text layer, and add a chromatic aberration effect to the duplicate. The effect isn't built into After Effects, I will provide the link in the video description, it's completely free. Lower the aberrate to 5, add a glow effect, no need change any settings. On the layer below, add a CC radial fast blur, place the center point in the middle of the text and increase the amount to 90. Change the text color to red, and finally reduce the opacity to 40%. Duplicate the last text layer. From the top duplicate layer of the first text, copy the effects and paste them onto the duplicate layer of the third text. Also, copy the effects from the bottom layer of the first text to the main layer of the third text and change the text color to red. Let's see. For the middle text, change the color to light blue and reduce the opacity to 80%. Copy the chromatic aberration from the duplicate first text and paste it onto the middle text. Trim the last two frames of both layers of the first text, delete the bottom layer, and on the remain layer remove the glow effect. Change the text color to light blue and lower the opacity to 80%. It looks like this. Finally, reduce the opacity of the bottom layer of the last text to 60%. Jack Neel often use black dot overlays in these animations. We will go back to Google and enter the FreePic website. Search for white halftone texture, scroll a bit, and here I found the perfect one. We will use it through the entire video. Back in After Effects, add the black dots overlay to the comp, scale it down to 20%, and move it to the left side of the text. I want to improve the overlay a bit, so we will start by adding a linear color key effect and sample the white color. I'm zooming in onto the dots, so you can see how we will make them look much nicer. Add a simple choker effect and increase the choker matte to 15, so they are less harsh. This is slightly reduce the size of the dots. Also, add a fastbox blur effect, set iteration to 16 and blur radius to 1. Wow, it's already much better. Duplicate the overlay and move the duplicated one slightly to the right, so the dots also appear on the right side of the screen. Now let's go to FreePic. This time search for black-white wall texture. Scroll a bit and look through the options. Here, I found the perfect one, we will use it. Back in After Effects, add a wall overlay to the comp. Rotate it to -90 degrees, change the layer mode to multiply, scale it down to 50% and also reduce the opacity to 50%. Look, it's starting to take a shape. Drop a comment and let me know which animation do you want us to create in the next video. Right click and add a new null object above the image of chase used. Select the chase layer and the three layers that make up the light core and parent them to the null. At second 0, create scale keyframe on the null, move 9 frames forward and reduce the scale to 45%. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor and apply the Easy Ease. This creates movement like this. Right click and add a black solid underneath the first text layer. Add a turbulent displace effect to the solid, set size and complexity to 10 and displacement to 530. Create mask on the solid in this shape leaving the edges. Click invert and increase the mask feather to 240 pixels. At the beginning of the layer, create a mask path keyframe, move 7 frames forward and reduce the mask to this shape. Move 2 frames forward and reduce the mask again. Adjust the edges point to this shape. Move 6 frames forward and close the mask until nothing is visible. Move 2 frames back before the mask disappears and create an opacity keyframe. Move slightly forward and increase it to 0%. This creates beautiful screen closing effect. Select the cloud video layer and the 3 light core layers. Move to 9th frame and create an opacity keyframe for them. Move slightly forward, reduce the opacity to 0%, then trim and delete the part of the layer that come after. Now we'll create a flashing animation for chase photo. You need to focus because these frames are really important. Move to frame 20 and create a map white and a mountain keyframes on chase layer. Move 2 frames forward and change the map white to gray-red tone. Move 2 frames forward, copy and paste the first map white keyframe. Also reduce the amount to 70%. Add a glow effect to chase. Go 3 frames back and create a glow threshold, radius and intensity keyframes. Reset all of them, move forward to the last keyframes and set threshold to 70% and intensity to 1. Go back to the first glow keyframes, create opacity keyframe, move 1 frame forward and reduce it to 50%. Move forward to the last glow keyframes and reduce the opacity to 40%. Move 2 frames forward and create another keyframe. For the final time, move 1 frame forward and reduce it to 0%. I made a mistake here, go back to the last team keyframes and change the color to white. Look at this flashing animation. Simply amazing. Now we'll start creating the expression animation that connect to this animation. Add a new white solid, right click and pre-compose it. Enter the comp, duplicate the solid, search for fractal noise and add it to the duplicate layer. Lower the constraint to 18, raise the brightness to 45, use the ellipse tool to create circle mask in the center of the screen, click invert to flip the mask and increase the mask feather so it looks softer. Now go to Pinterest, search for Queen in Chess, and this one is perfect, we will use it. Also search for Knight in Chess. Everything here look great, you can choose one of those. Back in After Effects, add the Knight and the Queen images with the background already removed. Turn them into 3D layer. Using the position, move the Queen backward and to the left side of the comp. I recommend copying the values from me. At 1 second and 6 frames, create a position keyframe. Move 1 second forward and move the Queen to the right behind the Knight. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor and apply easy ease. This creates movement like this. Now arrange the Knight, move it backward, slightly up and to the right side. Duplicate the Knight, move it down, shift it left and reset the Z position back to 0. I recommend copying the position values from me. Duplicate the Knight one more, scale it up to 160% and move it to the right outside the comp so only the small part of the head is visible. Add a gradient ramp effect to the Queen, place the start and the end of the ramp on the opposition side of the Queen, change the start color to grayish red and the end color to pale purplish white. It's a bit too strong, so reduce the blend to 50%. We will want to create reflection for the Queen and one of the Knights. Duplicate the Queen layer and rotate the duplicate layer's X rotation to 150 degrees. Move to the last position keyframe and lower the bottom of the Queen. Go back to the first keyframe and adjust the reflection relative to the Queen. Create a mask on the reflection roughly this size and increase the mask feather to create a fade effect. This creates illusion of reflection. Now duplicate the far Knight and create a reflection for it the same way. There is no need to do this for the other pieces since their bottoms aren't visible. Return to the main comp, copy the 2 overlays of the dots, go back to the chess comp and paste them. Move one to the left side, on the other click right, transform, flip horizontal and place it on the right side. This way the dots cover the entire screen. Lower the opacity of the reflection layer to 50% since they are a bit too strong. Go back to the main comp. At 1 second and 6 frames, the point where the Queen starts moving, trim the chess comp and delete the part before it. Add a background to the main comp and pre-compose it. At the same point, trim and delete the part of the layer that came before. Inside the comp, add a tint effect to the background. Change the map black 2 to a red reddish black and map white 2 to red. Add brightness and contrast effect and increase the brightness to 50. Go back to free pick, this time write light grunge texture. All of those options are great, you can choose one of them. Back in After Effects, inside the background comp, add a wall overlay and scale it to cover the entire screen. Change its mode to overlay and reduce the opacity to 30%. Add a picture of Chase again and scale him up to 450%. Position him down and to the left, roughly at this point. Change his mode to soft light and reduce the opacity to 50%. Back in the main comp, create mask on the top comp that cuts the screen diagonally like this. Create a mask path keyframe, move 4 frames forward and adjust the mask so the edges are exposed. Move 1 frame forward, copy and paste the last keyframe, move 1 frame forward, close the top part and push the right side forward like this. Move 1 frame forward and create another keyframe, move 1 more frame forward and push the mask slightly. Move forward about 16 frames and close a bit more, making sure to keep the diagonal shape. Move 4 frames forward and push the mask a bit more. Move 6 frames forward and close it significantly. Move 6 more frames forward and leave only the small portion visible. Move 1 final frame forward and move the mask out of the view. Look at the beautiful shape it's created. Right click and create a one node camera. On the comp with the chess pieces, click continuously rasterize. When you enable it on a comp, all the 3D layers inside affected from outside as if they weren't in pre-comp. Move the camera to the left until the chess pieces are out of the view, and create a keyframe at 1 second and 14 frames. Move forward to 2 seconds and 8 frames, and adjust the camera so the chess soliders are centered on the screen. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor, and apply Easy Ease. To create smooth movement, add a new null layer, turn the null into 3D layer, and parent the camera to it. Between the two camera keyframes, create a position keyframe on the null, move slightly after the last camera keyframe, and move the null left and forward to this point so the two front knights are out of view. I recommend copying the position values for me. Select the keyframes, open a graph editor, and apply Easy Ease. Enter the chess comp and change the mode of the closest knight to linear light. This is visual, adds a lot of visual appeal. Go to Pinterest and search for a brain. There are several nice options. I like this one the most, so I will use it. Back in After Effects, in the chess solider comp, add a brain to the comp, right click and choose Flip Horizontal to rotate it. Scale it up to 180%, turn it into 3D layer, and move it to the right so it's outside the comp. Go to the main comp, adjust the brain so it appears in this area. Here again, I recommend copying the position and the scale values to simplify things. In the chess comp, move the brain layer under the two black dots, add a tint effect, and change the matte black 2 to dark red. Finally, add a glow effect to create this color. Let's see how it looks. Wow, it's already starting to take a shape. In the main comp, add text layer and type Mind, using the American typewriter font, a free font that I will include in the video description. Center the anchor point, scale it to 240%, and position it in the center of the screen. Duplicate the layer. On the bottom layer, type Ctrl and place below the first text. On the top layer, right click and add a drop shadow. Then right click again and add an inner shadow. For the drop shadow, set size to 20, reduce the opacity to 40%. For the inner shadow, set size to 11 and reduce opacity to 20%. Copy the drop shadow and the inner shadow from the top layer and paste them onto the second text layer. Select the text layers and move to the moment where the red mask is in the middle of the screen, around 1 second and 8 frames. Create position keyframe, move forward to 2 seconds and 60 frames, and add another position keyframe. Go back to the first keyframe and move the text slightly to the right. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor, and create a sharp entrance. Move slightly after the first keyframes and create opacity keyframes. Go back to the first keyframes and reduce the opacity to 0%. Trim and delete the parts of the layers before the keyframes. Finally, move the first text layer a few frames back. It should look like this. Select the text layer, right-click and pre-compose them. On the pre-comp, right-click and create another pre-compose. Enter this pre-comp. You will need the dots overlays, so copy both from the main comp and paste them inside the text comp. Arrange them nicely over the text. Use the track matte to link the dot layers to the text comp. Finally, restore the visibility so it automatically fades out. Let's see how it looks. Go back to the main comp and turn the text comp into 3D layer. Position it in the center of the screen. Now we want the text to be behind the knight. Using the pen tool, create mask on the text comp in the shape of the knight's hair, so the text is initially hidden. In the mask setting, create a mask path keyframe, move 1 frame forward, and adjust the mask to follow the knight's hair so the text started to appear. Repeat this process, move 1 frame forward each time, and adjust the mask to match the knight. Continue until the entire text is no longer behind the knight. Now the text moves naturally with the camera. In the center of the screen, add the text and type PSYOP, scale it to 380% and move it down. Right click the layer and add the inner shadow. In the inner shadow settings, set size to 18 and opacity to 20%. Now we want to create separate layer for each word. Duplicate the layer, copy the last word and delete it. Duplicate again, paste the copied word into the duplicate layer, position it accordingly to the template, and finally delete the template. Select the two text layers, right click and pre-compose them. Enter the comp and change the fill of the second word to dark red. You will need the dots overlay again. Copy them from the main comp and paste them into the comp with the words. Arrange each overlay over its respective word. Use the track matte to link each overlay to the layer below it and restore the visibility of the letters. Also, parent each overlay to its corresponding word using parent and link. At 1 second and 5 frames, create a position keyframes for the word layers. Move forward 14 frames and add another set of position keyframes. Go back to the first keyframes and shift the text slightly to the right. Set the opacity of all layers to 0% and create opacity keyframes. Move forward slightly and reduce the opacity to 100%. Go back to the first keyframes, trim and delete all the parts of the layers before the keyframes. Finally, move the first word and its overlay few frames forward. It should look like this. In the main comp, move to 1 second and 28 frames and create a position keyframe for the comp. Go back half second and move the comp slightly to the right. Move forward a little bit more than a second to the moment when the second text is centered on the screen, and shift the comp to the left until it's out of view. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor, and apply easy ease to both graphs. Move to the moment where the brain starts to appear, create an opacity keyframe for the comp, move 6 frames forward, and reduce the opacity to 0%. Right-click the layer and add a drop shadow. In the drop shadow setting, set size to 40 and opacity to 50%. This is how this part looks so far. Enter the red background comp, move to 1 second and 13 frames, and create a map white keyframe. Move forward 10 frames and change the color to black. Move 1 frame forward, copy the first keyframe and paste it. This creates a flicker effect that adds a life to the animation. Move to 3 seconds and 10 frames and move the node forward to roughly this size. It should look like this. Right click and add adjustment layer. Apply chromatic aberration effect and set aberration to -15. Move back to the end of the previous parts of the animation, trim and delete the earlier part of the layers. Wow, this immediately adds a lot of visual depth. Now we'll create the transition. Create another adjustment layer, add a tint effect and set amount to 50%. Add exposure effect and set exposure to 0.80. Add curves effect and stretch the curve slightly upward. Add a glow effect, set glow threshold to 70%, glow radius to 100 and glow intensity to 0.5. Add Gaussian blur effect and set blurriness to 3. Add a noise and increase the amount of noise to 5%. Finally, reduce the opacity of the layer to 70%. Right click and add a new solid layer in light blue. Change the mode of the solid to screen, move to 3 seconds and 6 frames, and create opacity keyframes for both adjustment layer and solid. Go back half a second and set opacity to 0%. Trim and delete all the parts of layers before these keyframes. This creates a beautiful transition. Find the 2 black dots overlay, duplicate them and bring them to the top. Move them so they start at 3 seconds and arrange them to cover the screen entirely. For the right one, right click and select flip horizontal so the single side is on the edge, not the center. Now we'll do a bit of tie-dyeing up. Select all the layers from the first animation, from the vertical short layer down to the background layer. Move to the second when the second animation begins, trim and delete the parts after this point. Right click and create a new solid in dark red. Right click again and create another solid in black. Select both and pre-compose them. Enter the comp and on the black solid, create circle mask at the top of the comp. Move it to the top center and stretch the mask edges slightly. In the mask setting, press invert, add turbulent displace effect, set complexity to 10, size to 10, and amount to 540. Increase the mask feather to approximately 680 pixels. Inside the comp, create a new adjustment layer, add a fastbox blur effect with a radius of 1. Finally, search for noise effect, add it, and set the amount to 10. Add the brain file again, scale it to 180%, right click and flip horizontal, and move it slightly left so it partially cut off. Add a tint effect, set map black 2 to light gray, and map white 2 to light brown. Finally, add the dots overlays, copy them from the main comp, and paste them above the brain in this comp. In the main comp, move to 3 seconds, frame 10, and cut out everything in the main comp before this point. Move the comp to the right until it's completely out of the screen. Create a position keyframe and enable the motion blur on this layer. Move forward 6 frames and adjust the comp to the desired position. Then move 7 frames after and position the comp in its final location. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor and set the first graph for a fast in and the second graph for a fast out. In the center of the screen, create a text layer and type government in black. Center the anchor point and scale it to 420%. Right click, go to layer style and add an inner glow. Change the inner glow color to dark red, increase the size to 55% and lower the opacity to 40%. Below this, create another text layer, type brainwashing in white, center the anchor point, scale it to match the first text and place it above the first text in the top right corner. Add a drop shadow to the text, set the size to 16 and the opacity to 30%. Then copy the shadow to the second text layer. As the comp begins to enter, cut and delete the parts of the text layers that appear before this point. Move the second text a few frames forward so it appears after the first, Go to the middle keyframe of the comp, parent both text layer to the comp using parent and link so they are moved with it. 2 frames before the last keyframe, cut and delete the remaining parts of the text layer so they'll disappear. Right click and add a new adjustment layer. When the text is centered on the screen, cut and delete any parts of the adjustment layer before this point. Add a Gaussian blur effect, set blurriness to 5, and uncheck repeat edges pixels. Add a CC radial blur effect, and also add a chromatic aberration effect, setting the aberration to -10. Finally, add a noise effect and increase the amount of the noise to 10%. Create a keyframes for the amount of the noise, amount, and blurriness. Move forward 3 frames, increase the blurriness to 150, amount to 5, and noise to 20%. Move forward 4 frames more, reset all the values, and return noise to 10%. This creates a smooth transition effect. Go back to the beginning of the adjustment layer, using the pen tool, create an irregular rectangle in the center of the screen, and apply the turbulent displace effect. Increase the amount to 2200, complexity to 10, and reduce the size to 35. Add a fastbox blur effect, and raise the blur radius to 10. Move 2 frames forward from the start of the adjustment layer, cut and delete the portion of the layer before this point. Move another 2 frames forward, cut and delete the part of the layer after this point. This creates dirty distort effect. Enter the last comp and add a text layer. Type government in cyan, and center the anchor point. Scale and position it near to the brain. Duplicate the layer and change the text to brainwashing. Center its anchor point. Scale it slightly larger than the first text and position it below. Duplicate the black dots overlays and move them above the text layers. Arrange each overlay above its corresponding text and use the trackmate to link each overlay to its text. Make sure to restore the text visibility. Move to second 3 frame 20, cut the text and overlays and delete all parts before this point. Move the first text and its overlay forward by 1 frame. When the first wall appears, create a map black and white keyframe on the brain. Move 1 frame forward, change the map black to dark gray and the map white to light cyan. Move 3 frames forward and add the keyframes for both parameters. Move 1 frame forward, copy and paste the first keyframes, add another brain layer between the 2 text layers for the brain explosion animation. Set it to the start at second 3, frame 23, go back to the first keyframes of the second brain layer, copy its tint effect and paste it onto the new brain. Move to the start of the new brain layer and delete any content after this point. To align the new brain with the original, copy the position and scale values from the first brain to the second. To create brain explosion, apply a shader effect to the new brain layer, change the view to render, and set the render to pieces. Under the shader, set pattern to triangles 2, increase the repetition to 20 for more pieces, make sure to place the origin at the center of the brain. Under physics, increase the randomness to 0.58. Under shape, reduce the extrusion depth to 0. This creates a fragmented explosion effect. Now we want to create burning paper animation. To do this, I use Will Carmack's tutorial video. You can learn it through his tutorial, or you can use the comps I created, they are on the project files. In the main comp, add those comps, pre-comp 7 and black comp 1. Using the pen tool, create a black rectangle in the center of the screen, roughly this size, and place it between the layers. Use the trackmate to link the top comp to the shape layer, restore the visibility, and again use the trackmate to link the rectangle to the bottom overlay. Click to make the rectangle layer shy, select the 3 rectangle layers and pre-compose them. Pre-compose the comp again and enter it. Move to the start before the effects affects the rectangle. Add a CC slider effect to the comp, create X and Y position keyframes, and under rotation create X, Y and Z rotation keyframes. At the start of the layer, move it to the right and rotate the Z slightly by 16 degrees. Move forward to second 1 frame 8 and position the page to the center and slightly down. Move to the point where the page is almost gone, shift it to the right until it exits the comp, and raise it to the center. For the rotation during the movement, rotate X by 20, Y by 230, and Z to 34. Select the keyframes, enter the graph editor, and apply ease to all the graphs. Select the middle of the position graph and flatten it to create a sharp exit. It looks really nice. Back in the main comp, for organization, change the burning paper comp color to orange. Move the layer under the chromatic aberration adjustment layer. When the second animation begins, cut the layer and move the left part down to sit above the background. Move to the transition when the screen is blurred and create a scale keyframe for the exploding brain comp. Move forward to when Chase Hughes starts speaking and scale it up to 130%. Select the keyframes and create a sharp exit in the graph editor. Select all animation layers, cut and delete all parts of the layers after this point. Create a scale keyframe for the video footage, move forward slightly and scale it to 130%. Enter the graph editor and create a fast entry. Using position, move it left and down so it stays on a screen. Right click and add adjustment layer, apply Gaussian blur effect to it, move slightly before the end of the animation, uncheck repeat edges pixels, set blurriness to 0 and create a keyframe. At this point, cut and delete the part of the layers before. Move one frame after the end of the animation, increase blurriness to 60, move a little further and reset it to 0. Cut and delete the portion of the layer after the last keyframe. This looks a bit aggressive, so go back to the first scale keyframe of the video footage and scale it up to 120%. Now it looks perfect. The animation is done. Now let's move on to second part, powerful text animation. On the right side, add a text layer and type one of the most using Montserrat font and slightly increase the size. Below it, add another text layer with the word powerful, scale it to 200% and position it under the first text. Add a third text layer and write techniques, move it up slightly, scale it 160% and arrange the three text layers nicely on the screen. Apply gradient ramp effect to the second text, position the ramp point at both edges, set the start color to red and the end color to gray. Right click the first text layer and add a drop shadow. Set the drop shadow size to 11 and opacity to 100%. Then copy this drop shadow to the other text layers, apply the CC light sweep effect to the second text, moving the center point to the middle of the text, move slightly before the animation ends, cut and delete the parts of the layer before this point. On the last text, click animate and choose opacity. Set the opacity to 0% and create a start keyframe. Move forward when you say the sentence and raise the opacity to 100%. Move to the point where the word finishes, create position keyframe for the second layer, go back to when the word starts and shift the text slightly to the right. Select the keyframes, go into the graph editor and apply easy easy. At the same point, lower the opacity to 0% and create keyframe. Move slightly forward and raise the opacity back to 100%. Return to the first keyframe, move the light sweep center to the start of the text and create keyframe. Go to the last keyframe and move the point to the end of the text. Select the keyframes, go to the graph editor and apply an easy ease. Parent the bottom text to the middle text so it moves together. Move along the keyframes, cut and delete the parts of the bottom text layer before this point. Now raise the adjustment layer above the text layers so the blur also affects them. Move forward when the speaker finishes the entire sentence, then cut and delete the text layers after this point. Create text layer and type that. Scale it to 110%, duplicate this layer, change the text to people, and position it next to the first text. Then type don't really understand, placing each word on a separate layer, scale them, and arrange them nicely on the screen. Select all those layers and trim them previously at the moment the previous text finishes. Position each word layered according to when the speaker says each word. Copy the drop shadow from one of the previous text layers and paste it onto all the new layers. For the bottom text, add a CC light sweep effect, position the center point on the text, change the light color to red, and increase the intensity to 100. Move forward 20 frames and create a position keyframe. Go back to the start of the layer and move the text downward. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor and apply a fast easy for entry. When the speaker finishes to say the last word, trim and delete all the layers that come after that point. Add a text layer and type if you want someone to think, placing each word on a separate layer, arrange and scale each word on the screen. Copy the drop shadow from one of the previous text layers and paste it onto the new text layer. Trim and delete any parts of the layers that occur before that point where the previous text finishes. Position each word layer start exactly when the speaker is saying it. Go back to the start of the main video layer, create a scale keyframe, move forward slightly and increase the scale about 140%. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor and apply a fast easy for entry. Duplicate the adjustment layer with a blur effect, move it to the top and position it so it starts at the same point as the first text layer. This adds a lot of visual impact. Move forward to the moment he finishes the sentence, then trim and delete the text layers at that point. Add the text and write "an idea is their own," placing each word in a separate layer. Arrange and scale the words so they look good on the screen. Find the red text from earlier, copy its gradient ramp and CC light sweep effect, and paste them onto the own text layer. Position the start of the ramp at the right side of the text, remove the existing center keyframe, and adjust it to this point, and set the end color at the left side of the text. Go back to the end of the previous text layers, and trim any parts of the layers that come before the current text. Leave a few frames of spacing between the layers according to pacing of the narration. Trim and delete the parts of those layers that occur after the speaker finished speaking. Copy the drop shadow from one of the previous text layer and apply it to those layers as well. Repeat the same process for the sentence you have to make them feel. Create a separate layer for each word. Scale and position each word individually. Copy the drop shadow from one of the previous layer and apply it onto the new word layers. Delete the parts of the layers that appear before the sentence, and leave a few frames of spacing between the layers according to the speech pacing. On the main video layer, create a scale keyframe, move slightly forward and reduce the scale to 130%. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor, and create a fast easy for entry. Duplicate the blur adjustment layer, move it to the top, and position it to start at the beginning of the last text layers. Let's see. When the sentence finishes, trim and delete the layers that follow. Now let's create something beautiful. Add a new text layer and type clever. Scale it up to 350% and position it on the right side of the screen. Find the red text from earlier, copy its gradient ramp and CC light sweep effect, and apply them to this new clever text layer. Position the start and the end of the ramp at the sides of the text, and make the end color slightly brighter. Copy the drop shadow from the previous text layer and paste it onto this word. Place the light sweep point, create a keyframe for it, and trim any part of the layer that appeared before the animation. Move forward to when it finishes saying the word, shift the light sweep point slightly to the right, select the keyframes, open the graph editor, and create an easy ease for smooth movement. Duplicate the layer, and separate the word so each letter has its own layer positioned above the original template. Then delete the template layer underneath. To create blinking entrance effect for the text, go letter by letter, moving one frame forward at a time, leaving small gaps and some empty spaces. Only cut frames at the very beginning of each layer to maintain the effect. This will produce streaking blink animation. Finally, use the pen tool to draw a wave line under the text. In the stroke setting, change the line cap to round cap, click end and select trim path. Once all the text layers are fully visible, trim and delete the earlier parts of the shape layer. In the trim path setting, lower the end to 0% and create a keyframe. Move forward when you finish saying the word and raise back to 100%. Select the keyframes, open the graph editor and apply an easy ease for smooth animation. Disestablish the base. Add a turbulent displace effect to the layer, set the amount to 20, reduce the size to 2, and increase the complexity to 10. Change the stroke color of the line to dark red. Copy the CC light sweep effect from the text layer below and paste it onto the shape layer. At the start of the layer, position the light sweep center point at the beginning of the line. Move forward when the line stops moving and place the point at the end of the line. Then delete the last keyframe. Increase the white to 230, increase the sweep intensity to -68. Now the effect comes out like this. Move to the start of the last text layer. On the video layer, create a scale keyframe. Move forward slightly and increase the scale to 150%. Grab the keyframes, open the graph editor and create a sharp easy in. To add a blur again, duplicate the adjustment layer with a blur and position it at the start of the last text layer. Move forward to when it finishes the sentence, then trim and delete the layers after that point. Next, create a sentence for coming up with that idea, placing each word on a separate layer, scale them, and arrange them nicely on the right side of the screen. Copy the drop shadow from the previous text layer and apply it to all the new layers. Trim and delete the parts of those layers that preceded the previous text. Add small gaps between the words to match the timing of the speech. Now, to separate the subject from the background, go back to the point where the animation ends and trim the video layers portion before that. Double-click the video to open layer panel. Use the roto brush tool to select the subject. Make sure to cover all those areas carefully, as it doesn't always select perfectly. When finished, click freeze at the bottom. This is automatically create a mask for the subject through the whole video. When it's done, close the layer panel to return to the main comp. Duplicate the video layer. On the lower layer, delete the roto brush effect to restore the original background. Finally, locate the point and the wall overlays Duplicate them and place them between the two video layers so the overlays appears behind the subject. Extend the overlays layers to the end of the comp, optionally arrange the points along the edges, and rotate horizontally the right size one for a better placement. Rotate the wall overlay 90 degrees, scale it down to 50%, and lower the opacity of all overlays to 50%. And that's it, now you know how to create documentary style intros like Jack Neel. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to like, subscribe so you don't miss any future animation and tips. Drop a comment below and let me know what kind of animation do you want to see next. I will make sure to cover it in the upcoming videos. Thanks for watching and keep animating.